Get notifications and stay updated every time I post a challenge podcast by hitting the subscribe button. Thank you all and hope you enjoy.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back on the podcast. I have another guest who we haven't seen for quite some time, right? Where's Luke? Well, I found him, and he's kind of rounding out the Fresh Me Too guys here. I've had most of them on before, but please help me welcome my guest at this time, Mr. Luke Wolfe. How you doing?
Good, man. It's been a while. Just kind of living life out here in the Northwest still and reminiscing on the good old challenge days.
Yeah, from following you on Instagram, I kind of see you up in the mountains a lot of snow over by you. Is that what you do? Just go on hikes and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a weekend warrior. I run a business, during the week, but I've gotten into mountaineering lately, so I climb a lot of mountains. I've always been a big snowboarder. Really just, weekends are for getting out, and I like being on top of things and in the snow. So, it's climbing a mountain, snowboarding down it. That's, like, perfect for me. That's my nirvana.
So I take it then the Fresh Me Too house is right up your alley then.
Oh, dude, absolutely. That Whistler house was unreal. I mean, that was such a cool, just like the most amazing log cabin you could ever imagine.
And when I have most of my guests from that season on, that's something I always ask them is their thoughts on that house, because just from watching it from a casual, viewer standpoint, that's probably my favorite house from a challenge season that I've watched at least. So and I wish they had more seasons in like cold weather locations. I mean, I know last season, wait to hear this, the past season that just happened, they were back in Czech Republic, right? But they had them living in an underground bunker.
Okay, I thought I heard something about that. I haven't really been keeping up with it lately, but I heard the bunker thing, and it was back in the Czech, back in Prague.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, but you just said about not really following it that much. Is the challenge kind of something that just organically kind of slipped away from you and you kind of slid under the radar, or was it something you intentionally wanted to put on kind of the back burner of your life?
It kind of just organically happened, honestly. Like, they had called me for a third challenge. I want to say it wasn't the next season after Cutthroat, but like the following season. And I was in, I had I'd cut, or, I'd taken the term off of school and I got everything ready. And then something happened. Someone pulled out. They had to, rechange the format or whatever. And I ended up getting on the alternate list instead. And I just never got in there. And so that kind of left like a bit of a salty taste in my mouth. But it was what it was. And then by the time they called me for number 4, I'd kind of already had the career job sort of, I was rolling in that direction, and it was just, it was impossible to take 6 weeks off, so it's like, it would have been cool to do another one, but I'd already kind of been tracking towards something else.
Yeah, and I actually read that too, because I'm sure, you could probably even imagine with fans how they are. They dig up like who's getting called or who could potentially be there and stuff. Yeah, that season you were referring to, the 4th one they called you for, I think it was Battle of the Seasons was like the format, and they had a Fresh Me team. I heard that that was, because from what I read, I heard that you declined that one. So I guess from what you just told me, that was why, right? Because of the job?
Yeah, it was the job, and Battle of the Seasons, that would have been fun, man. Who were the Fresh Meat competitors? I mean, give me a couple, heavy hitters or whatever that were on there.
So the way it worked was they had 2 girls and 2 guys, and it was Brandon, but they combined the first Fresh Meat with the second Fresh Meat. So you were obviously on the second one. So it was Brandon, and then they had Big Easy because he was on the original Fresh Meat. And then they had Cara Maria. But the funny thing about Cara was that it was actually originally supposed to be Cara Lee, right? So then, I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't know if maybe Cara replaced her or whatnot, but on the first episode where they came in, they had to iron on Cara Maria on the
over the Lee.
Yeah. So,
Oh man, no shit. Well, that would have been a fun one to be on because like Brandon was one of my favorite homies from both of those seasons. Like he is such a good dude. It would have been fun to get another one in with him. He didn't get screwed on that one, did he?
They ended up losing, I think, fair and square, but yeah, they didn't really make it too far, no, because the way that worked was that was kind of like an unprecedented season because they had more rookie teams than they did, veteran teams. So by that point in time, that was Brandon's, like, I'd say third challenge or third or fourth challenge. Yeah, fourth. So at that point, him and Cara, Maria, Big Easy were kind of considered more of veterans, whereas like those newer world seasons were coming in and just picking them off. And that was kind of how that played out. They kind of got picked off in the beginning.
Right? No, it seems like the dynamics changed, man. They've opened it up to a lot more shows and seasons and stuff, and things have changed. Like it's turned into a real game.
Yeah, for sure. What about this year though? What's it kind of been like for you with the whole adjustment?
Oh man, for us, like luckily with business, it's been pretty good. I'm in commercial construction, so our contracts are long term, and things got kind of stalled out for a bit. But like work wise, we were able to keep moving on. Since I live kind of in not a small town, but it's like a college town. I live in Eugene, Oregon still. So it hasn't affected us like, the big cities. I was saying I got a buddy in Brooklyn, that was afraid to leave his apartment for 3 months. And I never really got that. Able to get out in the woods on the weekend and just kind of mess around, like getting outside, but still staying away from people kind of thing. So it hasn't been that bad.
And you just mentioned about your friend not wanting to leave. From experience, I'd say the first month or so in Times Square, because I'm about 10 minutes from there, it was completely empty. Like you could probably hear crickets in Times Square. Which is crazy.
That's crazy, yeah.
That's like pretty much like you're never gonna see a day in like the normal life where Times Square is empty. Like it's always crowded. You always got people coming in, coming out. So yeah, wow.
Man, yeah, that's unreal. Just seeing the way the whole country has reacted to this has been wild, man. I'm ready to get back to normal life. I can definitely say.
Are we all?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I miss live music. I was thinking about it the other day. I mean, that's the biggest thing I miss. I've had to cancel a couple, good concerts I was going to this year. Like it's just I'm ready to get back out there, like have the bars open, just be able to hug friends,
Yeah, for sure. But now let's kind of get into what I'm sure everyone's listening is going to want to hear about, which is obviously more challenge related stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to take it back a ways to your casting story and kind of how that whole process played out with you coming on to Fresh Me Too.
Yeah, so I've actually got kind of an interesting casting story. I never really wanted to do this stuff necessarily. Like I grew up watching Real World here and there and The Challenge. I was stoked on The Challenge. Like I did watch that a fair bit in high school. But I was in college here in Eugene, and I had a buddy at the college up the road, Oregon State University, who had a couple cheerleader buddies that wanted to come down and do this open casting call. So he hit me up and he's like, "Hey man, can we kick it at your place? Take some shots pregame a little bit, and then I'll cruise over." And I had nothing going on, so I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And me and my buddy were just gonna hang out outside, but we figured it was a big group interview, so why not go in? And what you'll never find out in the shows, Bina Murray was pissed off. When I casted, I was like hippie Luke. Like I had long hair like I do now. I had all the hemp and the Rasta gear on. Like they were looking for a hippie. And so I was in this group interview where, the typical deal, everybody's throwing themselves at the interviewer and trying to get heard. And me and my buddy are just kind of hanging back and BSing and, just not really engaged. And finally the interviewer called me out and asked me it was something to do with like pot legalization, or like when's the last time you smoked marijuana or what, it was something along those lines. And I gave him apparently because he shut the interview down immediately after that. And said, thanks everybody, it's been great. Hey Luke, can we get you to stick behind for a little while? I was like, okay, cool. And everybody else, left the room giving me like, the glare of death because they all knew I didn't really want to be there. And I had to go through the basic, questionnaire. I think it's like 100 questions, anything and everything under the sun. And while my homies were out there waiting for like 3 hours for me to finish this thing. And so I got all done with that, and these guys decided to spend the night, so we went and partied, and I got a call later that night, and they asked me to go do a video interview the next morning, and at that point I was like, fuck it, why not? And kind of went through that process, and then I ended up being cut for, I forget what Real World season that was, but I ended up, being a Real World reject in that sense. Which was fine with me because I think I wouldn't have hacked it in the real world. The challenges were kind of more my thing. But a couple months later, they called me back up and asked if I was interested in the challenge. And I said yes. I went for a couple more interviews. And then the kicker of it all, probably like the funniest part of this whole casting process, is that they made me take a drug test. And I think they make everybody take a drug test, but it's like, guys, you pegged me as a stoner. Like, I'm not going to pass this drug test, right? So I had this whole debacle of faking a drug test to get onto this show, which is a whole nother story in itself, but made it on, passed the drug test. I finally get there. I eventually asked production, I'm like, what the fuck were you guys thinking? Like, why do you make me take this drug test? Of course I was going to show up as, having weed in my system. And they're like, oh, no, we didn't care about that. We just didn't want to make sure you weren't like a junkie or like a meth addict or something. And so like that was just like the most ridiculous part of my casting thing, like never even needed to happen, right? Like I was all stressed out about this drug test. I went through all this craziness to fake this thing, and it was always going to be like, oh, okay. So yeah, in a nutshell, like that was my drug test. I had to bring my casting process. I had to bring a condom full of my buddy's clean pee in with me, and
oh my god,
it was a nightmare, man. It was a nightmare. But we got here, I got the ticket, I signed the contract, and we were good to go.
That is probably the gnarliest casting story I've heard.
Right. And then I show up with no hair, and like they were so annoyed with me because they casted me, I assume, as this hippie character. And a couple weeks before the first show, before Fresh Meat 2, me and my buddies decided to drink a bunch of Mad Dog 2020 and hop a train, like a bunch of hobos. And in order to do this, we're like, well, let's cut our hair into mullets. So we all cut our hair into mullets and did that. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, I can't keep the mullet. Let's just shave it all off. So that's how Challenge Luke came to be.
Wow. So yeah, now you're coming on to the challenge, and you mentioned about the Real World being cut and stuff. I think that might have been the same one that Brandon got cut for too, because he was telling me about it. It might have been Cancun was one of them, and DC I think was around that time frame.
I think so, yeah, it could have been DC because I remember Emily and Ty, from Cutthroat, they were rookies and they had just got done with their Real World season.
So it was probably then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So now you're coming on to Fresh Meat too, and then obviously the way the draft worked was you ended up without a partner, and then you got one brought in. It's been told that your partner wasn't able to make it into the country due to passport stuff. So how did that kind of play out? Did they tell you, what was going to be going down? I mean, obviously, I think we saw on screen, right? They were like, we'll have a partner for you or something like that. Did they tell you anything off camera?
No, I mean, honestly, like what you saw on the screen is kind of like it was hitting me firsthand, right? Like I was up there. I legitimately had like the second best combine scores. I mean, not it was a joke of a combine, but like I was pretty confident that like, okay, I'm gonna get picked at least, top 3 or 4, because my scores were so good, and obviously that didn't happen. And so I thought I was going home, man. Like, I thought I was going home. And then TJ finally said, hey, your partner wasn't able to make it. We got someone coming for you. And that was until Evelyn showed up. Like, I had no idea who was coming, what was going to happen, essentially.
So now, what was it like kind of having Evelyn as a partner? And we'll get into kind of how it, culminated later on with the elimination. But, what about just in general, like maybe first reaction to having Evelyn as a partner and kind of leading up to that elimination? What was it like having her as a partner?
Yeah, I mean, so first reaction, like that night, people were like, oh God, I hope it's not Evelyn, like we see them bringing Evelyn in, and if that happens, like you're set up, man. And so like first reaction was like stoked, I'm going to come in with this, passionate, like chick that's paid her dues and is a competitor. So I was stoked for a while, but dude, we were like oil and water, like, that whole Fresh Meat series, like my whole philosophy was like, hey, I'm super stoked to be here. I just want to be chill with everyone, have a great time. And when it comes time to compete, I'm going to bust my ass and, show up and make it happen. Which I think I did for pretty much all of them. I mean, everybody has their gaffes here and there, but she only cared about the game, only cared about the money. Really didn't give a shit at all about me. I mean, I was just a pawn and a tool for her, and honestly a scapegoat for her still in my mind. And then, following up to that elimination challenge, I just feel like she never really respected what I brought to the table. Like I was, physically very fit. Mentally, the puzzles and stuff for the most part, that Tetris thing fucked me up. Like I'll take the loss on that one. But overall, I feel like I was a pretty good competitor, and she just dished all of her failures, on me in that season, I think.
But what went down in that elimination, though? Because it was that checkpoint that you guys skipped. Was there anything we didn't see?
So, oh God, that was a wild night, man. I mean, that was one of the toughest things I've ever done. I don't really think there was much that was going on behind the scenes that you guys didn't see, but basically we showed up to that checkpoint, and she just had it in her mind that we needed to bust past Landon and Carly. We were making good time at this point. We just needed that this puzzle wasn't going to be worth it. And, I said, basically, I was like, come on, let's give this one try. Let's see if we can do this in 30 seconds and shave 5 minutes off our time, where's the cost benefit there? Like, that's obviously a benefit. But she wasn't having it. And she just kept marching up that hill. And, who knows what would have happened? Maybe we would have finished the puzzle. Maybe we wouldn't have. I mean, it didn't seem like it was that difficult. But yeah, we got up there, and I think with that puzzle they ended up beating us, by like 2 minutes or something. So it definitely turned the tables, obviously.
Yeah, and it seemed like you were kind of pushing to do the checkpoint, and then it was her idea to kind of skip it. And then after the fact, she's crying and then like refusing to, I don't know, what was it, shake your hand and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, it was pathetic. She didn't want to shake my hand, TJ's hand, Landon, Carly. Like she was just throwing a tantrum, man. Like it was, I think TJ said it best. Like he'd never seen, a 3-year-old on the challenge or whatever. And from that day, evening, like I haven't heard from or talked to Evelyn since then. So I don't know, what she's up to now. I'm sure people change, but I don't think I'd want to be on a team with her again.
So there was no conversation after the fact, right, between you two?
Not really. I mean, they stuff us in a van, to go down to Whistler Village, I think, where we had a hotel for the night, and it was a pretty quiet ride home. She just kind of cried in a corner, and I was like, whatever. We fucking tried hard. We almost did it, We left it all on the field, right? So.
Hey, I mean, you guys went out against the champs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And what we went into 3 elimination challenges, that season, and that was the one that took us down. So we were strong. I wish we would have won a challenge or two, but Laurel and Kenny, man, they seem to have everything dialed in.
So now you obviously leaving that challenge the way you did with Evelyn and stuff, kind of obviously, I'm sure, maybe left somewhat of a sour taste in your mouth. And I've had a couple people, I mean, Cara Maria won. She went out on the first elimination, and then we obviously know what the rest is history. Did you expect to get a call back after that to come back?
So I sort of did, but only because something that did happen off camera. It may have been on a daily or something, but towards the end of that season, it was getting, everybody was getting pretty stir crazy in that house, and there was a lot of booze going around. And there was an evening where we were all getting pretty drunk, and for whatever reason, I started doing some penis puppetry. I did a little circus penis puppetry show, and everybody was cracking up. I mean, all the producers and shit included, and Kenny pulled me aside later. He's all, man, like, that just guaranteed you a second season, that performance there. So I kind of left that challenge thinking that it was definitely a possibility. I wasn't positive, but when the call came, I wasn't surprised either.
Wow. So from what I'm kind of gathering here, it seems like we didn't see a ton of what we could have potentially seen out of Luke. And we'll get into some stuff later, because I know from the shit they should have shown edition to Cutthroat, you were pretty heavily involved. So I'll save that for later. But I'll bookmark that.
I like to have a good time. At that point, I was definitely a party man, was not into taking my clothes off for any reason. So had a little gigolo on set.
Yeah, and so Cutthroat's your second season. You guys, the Gray team kind of seemed like they were running things around there, but Abram was kind of like the head dog, and he seemed to kind of take you under his wing a little bit. What was your dynamic like with him?
Yeah, me and Abram got along pretty well. Abram's a totally different cat, his brain is wired differently than everyone else, and, in a good way. But he sort of ended up being a bit of a mentor figure in that situation. And so, no, that was fun. And I feel like as that, Cutthroat was a much better challenge for me. I got, I think, a lot better edits. I was more confident. I did, fairly well. And so, it was good kind of, learning the ropes from someone like Abram, who had been around and, kicked ass since, shit, he was on Road Rules, like an early Road Rules, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we were fairly tight on that. I mean, he spent most of his time canoodling Cara. Or painting his face and hiding under beds.
Yeah, we mentioned Cara. I mean, what about her evolution, dude? She goes out first challenge or first elimination on Fresh Me Too to pretty much the female face of the franchise. They have a new thing called CBS All Access when you could go and rewatch challenge seasons and stuff. They just came out with it, and her face is on the front cover of it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool because I, Cara Maria was one of my favorite girls there, and I got to spend a lot of time with her, well, number one, in the Fresh Meat tent, when we were kind of being, going for boot camp or whatever before the show even started, and then all through Cutthroat, and, it really sucked, she, it didn't seem like she had her headspace right in Fresh Meat too. Obviously, she didn't. And then we got to see her kind of gain confidence and just turn into the new Cara in Cutthroat. And by the end of that thing, I mean, she was killing it. Like, it was her, me, and Laurel at the end of the day there. And yeah, she stood the test.
Now, what about Laurel, though? Because she was a little bit of a tough cookie on you guys. You and
Laurel... Yeah, I don't think Laurel really ever, me and Laurel didn't get along very well. She played a cutthroat game, and I was there trying to, the gray team was kind of set up to be this like fair and diplomatic sort of situation. And she wasn't having that. And I can understand that. But, I think after the challenge, or after the final challenge, I think we both got a little more respect for each other, and maybe that was only for a few days or weeks or whatever, but we hugged it out at the end of that, and both realized that we were competitors, and we kind of squashed whatever we had. Now granted, I haven't been in another challenge since. I think she she's definitely in prior seasons done some things that I certainly don't approve of, and she's, got some stuff to own up to, but overall, I think at the end of Cutthroat, we'd kind of, just like thrown that aside and respected each other for the competitors that we were. So,
do you guys think you guys would have won though had Sarah and Abram not gone down?
I don't know if we would have won. I think it probably would have been close. I think. I don't think Sarah was ever ready for that final. I think she was a liability no matter what. And with the red team having Dunbar, Tyler, and Brad there, all three big, strong dudes, and so much of that final was moving weight around, that they definitely had an advantage in that sense. But I think we would have been much closer if we didn't have the medical stuff that went down.
And the funny part is, actually Abe's been on here as well before, and he was saying that like he loved what happened to him because
of course he did.
Yeah.
He probably had some fucking weird epiphany while he was puking everything out,
But in some weird twisted way, after thinking about it, like I kind of agree with him in the sense of like if you were to write a story about kind of how that season went, right? Mm-hmm. You take like the band of misfits that you guys were, have you guys kind of overachieve expectations and then kind of seem like the team to beat all year or all season? I'm thinking of football terms, right? Right. All season, and then the final comes, and then your star players go down, and then
yeah.
So
No, I think you're totally right. I mean, as far as like the drama goes, like it's perfect. It set it up, and it created a really good storyline for us to pick up the pieces. Our leader went down. We had to figure out a way to survive after that, and I think we did a good job of it. Other than Sarah kind of being an anchor. I wish she would have just bailed out when she started puking. Like, I don't think they really show it too accurately, but we had to deal with the Sarah, just breakdown for like over an hour before we could convince her to get off that stretcher and get in the ambulance. It was really frustrating.
So how hard was that final, though? Because, I mean, you did 3 exiles on Fresh Meat 2. Was it comparable to those?
Oh, it was way worse. It was, I think it's probably still potentially the hardest physical day I've had in my life. And I've had some pretty long days up in the mountains that, come close to that. But I think this was it because you've got the competition going on. It was legitimately like high 90s or low triple digits out there. There's no shade. They tarred and feathered you. And then it's just, it's nonstop with the weight and that stretcher. It may not have like seemed like it to the viewers, but that stretcher was the most uncomfortable thing to carry in any position you could find. Like, that was the absolute bar none worst part of that final, was lugging that stretcher around with someone on it. Like, it left just grooves in our shoulders, and it was, I think there's a scene there, you know, where Laurel's just like breaking down because, you know, it just hurts so bad. And just have to muscle through that. So that was a really, really tough challenge. Yeah.
I mean, from experience, I hate performing in like the heat. I'm more of a cold guy, and I know a lot of people differ with me on that. I mean, I'm in a place where we get all 4 seasons, but man, if I were to choose, I'd rather a cold weather final than a hot weather any day of the week.
Right. You know, I think nowadays I'd agree with you. Back then, I was coming off a pretty good career as a high school track athlete, you know, in the spring and summer. And so I was pretty geared up and used to the hot competition. So I was feeling pretty good. But yeah, when you see people dropping like flies around you and you're like, you guys didn't eat or drink this morning.
Wait, so you did have kind of like a background then now, right?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, I was a big snowboarder in high school, and then I was a pretty good track and field athlete. So on the running side of things, I was pretty well prepared. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. I did track and field in high school, and but I was kind of like a thrower. I mean, like I would run and practice and stuff, but they needed me for field and that type of area. So
mm-hmm. I threw javelin just to escape my hurdle workouts every once in a while, and throwing the javelin was awesome. But yeah, I did the 300 and the 110 hurdles, the 4x4 and the 4x1. So yeah, it was pretty fun. You know, that's actually the one sport that I miss right now. That's like the one thing as an adult, you know, it's like there isn't like an inner city track league, you know, that you can go out and run at.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, especially now, I mean, having nothing to do and stuff with the current state of everything being in, you just want to go out and do something at this point. That's exactly how I feel every other day.
Right, just got to find a mountain, man. Go find a trail, climb up to the top.
Yeah.
Good. I guess that's hard in Manhattan, though, huh?
Yeah, that's impossible. Yeah, but you were involved in a pretty funny elimination on Cutthroat that I want to talk about now.
Yeah.
I talked with Aya about it when she went up against Katie. But you went on that fly swatting elimination with Big Easy. What was that like, and how long did that go for?
I mean, it was hilarious. Honestly, when we saw what was going on, it was just, oh my God, you know what kind of humiliation is happening here? But it went on. You know, it's kind of hard to tell because the adrenaline's flowing and stuff, so time, you know, slows down. But I'd say, like, Easy and I were down there for, like, a solid 15, 20 minutes. I think each one of those rounds with the different slaughters was, like, 5 minutes. And the first one was just a joke. I mean, that first fly swatter, you could go all day, and it wouldn't hurt or do anything. That second one, he started pounding my ear. I had that cartilage earring. And like he nailed that thing so hard. He was just going for that. And he was starting to piss me off. But you know, it was a big joke. Like, it hurt. It wasn't fun, but it was funny at the same time. Us with these stupid, you know, bug eye glasses on and stuff. But as soon as that bucket came out and he came out swinging hard, like, I knew I had it, because like we had totally different strategies. Like, he was getting frustrated and pissed off, and he's, you know, swinging as hard as he could. And I'm here thinking, like, it doesn't matter if we even hit each other anymore. It's just all shoulder strength right now. So I focus on that, and obviously, you know, that was the right game plan. So, but it was a fun and funny, you know, elimination round to be a part of. It was definitely a whole new twist compared to anything in Fresh Meat 2.
Yeah, and you mentioned about going into that, like you and your buddies would have like drunk games all the time, hitting each other in the face. So this should be nothing for you.
Yeah, I had a little a prior practice to that for sure. I was never in a frat or anything in college, but I had a pretty good group of guy friends, and we'd get into some good shenanigans. And there was more than one night where there'd be a bottle of vodka or rum going around, and we'd just be fucking slapping the shit out of each other.
That's too funny. Yeah, and another thing on Cutthroat that I want to talk about was on the Shit They Should Have Shown edition. There was kind of an altercation between you and Camila, and then you had that little, like, what people would like to call Swan Dive when you hit your face on the ground. What was the stem of that whole altercation, and what?
Yeah. So I guess I gotta back it up like a little bit earlier that night. I can't remember exactly when, in the time frame of the challenge that was, but we were drinking heavily that night. And for whatever reason, Derek and I decided to have a heart-to-heart, just me and him. And in Europe, they've got these little 500 milliliter bottles of vodka. It's not like the fifths to 750 milliliters. And we ended up somehow putting down 3 of those bottles. So like 1.5 liters of vodka between the two of us. And, managed to have a good one-on-one and then get completely blacked out. And I think... I can't remember what sparked the confrontation with Camila, but like at some point I was frustrated because, I was attracted to her, but production was kind of pushing it. And I'd gone and, just told, like, she was about Johnny Bananas. Like, I had no chance in this. And, like, there were some stupid, like, setup scenes almost, where I go, like, with her on a hammock or something and, like, try to shoot the shit and play the game or whatever. But, which just failed miserably. But anyways, I was drunk. I think I must have made some comment to Camila. And then her and Jen got water, got these big water jugs and just, tossed them over me. And I'm totally blackout drunk, just completely destroyed. And yeah, me and Camila are yelling at each other and, just sloppy messes, right? And then I think you guys see, where she kind of like, I get up in her face and she sort of like shoves me away. And then like the tile floor, the stone floor of that castle thing was just so slippery that when she did that, you see the Swan Dive straight down. I just have these, like, I was so drunk. I just have these visions of I've got this like little snapshot recollection of being in this, like, it seemed like a veterinarian's office with this like very mean looking nurse, and some doctor like staring over me. And then I woke up the next morning, probably still drunk and super hungover. And I'm just feeling my face like, oh, like I need to shave. Like, what in the world is going on? No real recollection of the night before. And then I like stumble into the bathroom and all of a sudden I see 5 stitches on my chin. And then, it all kind of starts coming back to me.
Wow, and they didn't show that either.
No, they didn't. Yeah, that was that was wild. So yeah, I had to get stitched up. I forget the gal's name from production, but she like almost fainted. Like she said that like I popped up from that Swan Dive so quick, like I wasn't even hurt. And then I started like yelling or talking again. And she said every time I moved my mouth that my chin would just like open up and start squirting blood.
Oh my God.
So they're like, oh God, of course, get this kid to the hospital or whatever. And like, so that was that. But I don't think Camila deserved whatever I gave her that night, but she said something to spark whatever. And what it is now,
I think we should use this time as an insert clip moment.
Right? Yeah, throw it on, man. I'll never live it down. I'll forever love that scene. It's the perfect Swan Dive to pavement.
Quick pause.
Hey, get
all right.
away from me!
Nice. Perfect.
So now something I gotta ask you now about, which was a big thing that people, and I actually speculated on it again on this past season being in Czech, was about stuff being haunted over there. I don't know what it is about Czech Republic, right? What was that house haunted, do you think?
Dude, I was skeptical for a while. I was skeptical for a couple weeks. There were stories like, and Abram was kind of like the one kind of spreading these stories. It's like, Abram, you're just tossing shit out there. And but then there was a time where Brandon and Jen and I were just sitting in this corner kind of by the kitchen. It was like one of two places in the house that didn't have a static camera like watching you. So we were kind of like blind, and we didn't have a production crew around us. And we were just kind of BSing, and we were all sober. And it was the craziest thing ever. All three of us saw this. We were right by a window, and we all of a sudden just see this little girl's hand, this kind of like pale little girl's hand with these like frilly, old-timey, nightgown looking thing on, just slowly and deliberately close this window. And
Wow.
We're just all in like shock. We're like, what the hell? And then we all get up and look out the window. And it's like Usain Bolt couldn't run far enough or, fast enough to get out of our field of view. And that kind of cemented it for me, man, because the whole premise of that haunting was like, we weren't supposed to go on the third floor of the building. It was old, and it was dangerous. Like the flooring was, broken, and, people could get hurt or whatever was the reason. But we snuck up there one of the first days, and it was pretty much just cleared out. There was like a dusty old couch in a corner, but there was this one room, and it was this little girl's room. It looked like, maybe World War I, World War II era, and everything was still there. Like, the little girl's bed was still there. The dresser was still there. There was this little, I forget what they call it, but those little things where you go and kneel and pray over in a corner. Like, it was just like it had been untouched. And I swear to God, it was that little girl. Like, I don't know what happened to her, but like, she hung around the house, and she was just this like, not this like malevolent, mean thing, but just like kind of mischievous little spirit, man. It was wild.
Wow. That is that's probably like the first like actual confirmation that I've heard from someone on here talking about that story about the girl. That's actually crazy. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And like I said, I've always been a skeptic. Like, I still feel like I'm a skeptic in some ways, but like, I know that happened. I was sober. Two other people saw the exact same thing. And then some of the other stuff that happened later, just helped reinforce it. But, I don't think it was production pulling that thing. I think it was the real deal.
So now I gotta ask you now, since we just kind of basically covered base on everything that involved with your challenges, but now I kind of want to ask you about the newer challenge and get your take on something, which is kind of how they're casting now. Mm-hmm. So basically, the last like couple years, they started pulling from like a broader casting pool consisting of Are You the One? They've been pulling from people from the UK, Big Brother. What is your thoughts on them pulling from other shows like that?
Oh, I mean, I think it's certainly adding to the drama. Like, I haven't really been following it much. I know they've been pulling from these other shows, but I haven't really been watching them. I think it's a smart business move. They're getting a lot of different, people from different countries, backgrounds. Like, it's a shrink's wet dream, to get all these additional personalities in there. But it dilutes the purity of what it used to be, right? But times change, and I'd say people are still watching it, right?
Yeah, and I use this analogy a lot when I talk about kind of having to make your graduation. I know maybe it might not be like in your case, because you went straight onto the challenge, but in like most cases, like with the real world road rules, I always say like people kind of have to like graduate from there in order to make it onto the challenge, which I mean, granted, now after how many years, like things kind of change and evolve, that you can only do how many years of the real world, I feel like. So that was bound to fizzle out at some
For
point.
sure,
So
yeah.
so it's like, where are we going to be pulling people from,
But no, you're right. I like that analogy. I mean, to some extent, like you said, I kind of got the free ride, and to some extent, but yeah, you got to pay your dues somewhere else to, get on the varsity team, right, and play on the challenge.
Yeah. So now I got to ask you, though, would you watch the challenge again?
Yeah, no, I'd watch it. I just find myself like in normal life, I've got such a busy life that I don't watch a lot of TV these days. But if like a bunch of the old homies from the challenge, like I hear talk about this OG challenge, people are trying to make this happen. Like, I think that's definitely something that I would watch. Like if I've got a connection, and people that I know are in there, I of course I'm game to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like a big thing that's happening this season that's currently filming, like spoilers and stuff come out of like who's going to be there and stuff. Laurel and Teresa are actually returning and going on to this coming season. Yeah, and Johnny Bananas isn't on it.
Okay, well, yeah, Johnny's got like a CBS show or something, right?
Yeah, NBC First Look, yeah. He just won again last season, so...
Yeah, no, he's one of the few that's made it happen, man. Like, Johnny went all the way.
Yeah, good for him, right? But
absolutely.
It's kind of crazy because when I had Cara Maria on, we were talking about who we wanted to return and stuff like that. And I think it was like 6 days before it came out. She said Darrell and I said Teresa, and then it actually happened. And then everybody on Twitter was telling me that we manifested it or we knew something. And I was like, no, I really don't.
Oh, man. Well, I'm pulling Landon out, man. I think wholesome fucking badass backcountry Landon needs to go out there and just kill it again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would hope that that would come to fruition with you saying that. I mean, me as well. But from talking to him, I think that's kind of behind him. He's, kind of pushing he is, I think he just turned 40 or something like that, and he thinks that like going up against a bunch of people like in their 20s, early 30s isn't something that's in the cards right now.
Right. Well, no, I get it. Like, I was watching, Cutthroat season a while back, and like watching that final, and then looking at me and my dad bod now, and it's like, whoo, they better give me like 6 or 8 months to train if I'm ever gonna go back in that kind of house.
So if you were given like a 6 to 8 month like time frame, like, okay, we're gonna call you in like 8 months to go on a challenge, say now, would you do it?
If I could manage the work situation, absolutely. I'd love to go on a third one, and and it would be nice to win one. Like, I felt that bittersweet, like second place, wasn't satisfying enough. But I will say, the cards aren't really lining up, right? Like, I run a business now, and if they're not going to let me, run that business actively while I'm there, it's probably just not in the cards. And I don't think my liver's up to the task anymore either.
Oh my God.
It would be fun though.
Well, yeah, and I thank you for coming on here today, Luke. I mean, from the beginning, you were one of the first people in the very, very beginning that I reached out to try and make this happen. And I'm glad, so many months later, now I've grown, and then now you're coming on here, and you're one of the last remaining Fresh Me Too people that was left for me to kind of get on. So it's cool that we were able to make this happen.
Absolutely, man. I'm stoked. Yeah, stoked we finally made it happen. Got the crosshairs, lined up. And I think it's been awesome.
Well, thank you again for joining me. I look forward to putting this out. I'll give you the link when it's up. And people, for whoever's watching this, make sure you give a like, subscribe, comment something for Luke down below, something nice. Then maybe I could swing his way.
I've had enough real world hate throughout the years, right?
Thanks again, Luke.
No problem. Thank you, Mike. Have a good one, man.
You too.